Hello, Man in Gray here with another Man in Gray book review. Today's book is Glock, The Rise of America's Gun by Paul M. Barrett, published by Random House in 2013. It's 320 pages. In 1980, Gaston Glock was a small businessman in Austria. He managed a company that built radiators, and he had a side business that he ran out of his garage, making knives and bayonets for the Austrian army. One fateful day in 1980, he was at the Austrian Defense Department when he overheard two colonels discussing the fact that the Austrian army was looking to replace their pistols, and they were going to have a competition to decide a new model pistol for the Austrian army. And Glock immediately decided to enter the contest, even though he had never made a pistol before. He specialized in knives and bayonets, but he didn't know anything about guns really. But he immediately got people around him who knew guns, and he got the specifications, the requirements that the Austrian army required for their pistol, and he and his crew basically came up with a radical new design for a pistol in a year and a half. A year and a half after he first heard these two colonels, they already had the prototype of the Glock 17. Now, this gun was unlike any that had ever been done before because the frame of it was made out of polycarbonate plastic, which made it much, much lighter than other handguns of the time. And it weighed only 23 ounces and only had 34 moving parts, half as many as found in many other pistols, so it was much simpler. The Austrian government was skeptical about such a weird-looking gun made from plastic, but when they began testing it, they found that it performed far better than any other gun that had been submitted. And so, surprisingly, the Austrian government adopted this Glock 17 9mm pistol over all the established gun manufacturers. So, Gaston Glock then set up a small factory in Austria to start making these pistols for the Austrian army, and that's as far as he thought it would go. Now, whenever some company becomes huge or some business becomes a multi-billion-dollar business, it almost always relies not just on innovation, but on good luck and timing. And that was certainly the case with the Glock 17 pistol. In this case, Glock had the good fortune to meet Karl Walter. Karl Walter was another Austrian who had moved to the United States as a teenager and begun and built up a career selling guns, mostly to police departments. He read about the Glock 17 in a German arms magazine and was very intrigued by the idea. The next time he went to Austria, he managed to track down a model of the gun, and at first he was put off by its odd appearance, but he knew that the Austrian army had accepted it, and when he got the gun and tested it, he realized this would be an ideal weapon for American police departments. Now, in the early to mid 1980s, violent crime in the United States had been skyrocketing, and a number of police department officers had felt that they were being outgunned on the streets by criminals. Many of them were still carrying around revolvers that only had 6 rounds in them, and others were carrying semi-automatic pistols. And so Walter went around to various police departments and gun shows and began singing the praises of the Glock 17. For one thing, it had a 17-round magazine, and of course it was much lighter and simpler to use. And it also had a really innovative feature. It had a safety built into the trigger so that you didn't have to manually flip the safety off when you were using it and manually flipping it back on when you're holstering it. There were a number of police officers over the years who accidentally shot themselves holstering their pistols because they forgot to put the safety on. And so that eliminated that. And so very quickly, a number of police departments began adopting the Glock pistol as their sidearm, and this created another huge market for Gaston Glock's gun. He opened a major factory in the United States to sell primarily to police departments. But of course, it didn't take long before the Glock was discovered by criminals, terrorists, and crazy people. And they began loading up with Glocks as well. In 1991, a 35-year-old unemployed former merchant marine sailor took his pickup and drove it through a plate glass window of a cafeteria in Killeen, Texas. He jumped out, pulled out his Glock pistol, and began shooting at people. And when it was over, he killed 23 people, injured 27 others, and then turned the gun on himself when the police arrived. At the time, it was the worst mass shooting in American history, the Killeen Massacre. And as soon as it was discovered that a Glock pistol had been one of the weapons that had been used in this mass shooting, the Glock company immediately began pouring millions of dollars into public relations, support for the NRA, and especially lobbying in Congress, which is something they continue to do today to try to prevent any kind of restrictions on their guns. Especially, they've been especially opposed to bans on large magazine clips, because, of course, that's one of the things that the Glock was known for, was its ability to hold large numbers of rounds and bullets. So whether you are a gun enthusiast or whether you hate guns or whether you're somewhere in the middle, this book I think you will find really interesting because, for one thing, it shows you the importance of being in the right place at the right time, marketing, and good luck. Also, from a business point of view, it also shows the value of being an outsider. As one person that was interviewed for this book said, the reason other gun companies weren't able to compete with Glock initially is they already had handguns on the market, and so they simply modified the guns they already had, whereas Glock started from scratch and was able to design a wholly new gun using modern technology and polycarbonate plastics and various innovative ideas that nobody else had done. They were also able to quickly steal ideas from other companies. When Smith & Wesson was toying with the idea of a 40 caliber pistol, Gaston Glock went to a gun show where they were showing off this pistol, and he snatched a few bullets from this prototype pistol and took it back to his factory in Austria, and they came up with a 40 caliber Glock pistol, which wound up out-competing with Smith & Wesson. So they were very innovative and sneaky, and they also were quite good at public relations and lobbying. So if you're interested in the topic, it's a really interesting book to read. Glock, The Rise of America's Gun by Paul M. Barrett. This has been another book review, a Man and Gray book review. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.